Silly Ben. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start the Q&A session right now.
I need the wireless for a second before they get started.
Brad has the Q&A, the wireless one. Brad has the wireless one.
I have a favor to ask. The algorithm is playing havoc with our posters and the like. And so if you could go to freedomcalendar.net or letstalkalberta.com and grab posters for upcoming events and share them out with people that you know in those areas and ask them to share them out with people that they know. It's what I call the shampoo method of getting the message out. I know lots about shampoo, right? But it's from the Clairol commercial from the 70s and 80s. You tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on. And that seems to be the best way to get the word out. So if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Now I'll hand it back to the speakers.
Before we get to a Q&A, we're just going to give some household rules about that. Brad, where's Brad? You see on the back with the microphone? This is Brad. So if you have any questions, raise your hand, and Brad will get the microphone to you. Okay? This is an event that is obviously live streamed. So obviously, what you're going to say on the microphone will be for the interviews for everybody to hear. If you're not comfortable for that, Sandy can write your questions, and she will ask you on your behalf. So if you're more camera shy or microphone shy, feel free to do so. Also, when you have a question, it's very important for you guys to speak under the microphone, because if you do something like this, nobody will hear on the stream. And also because what happens is that people will use the questions that we ask during the Q&A session for other purposes as well. So it's important for you guys to remain with the microphone at all times. Please do not interrupt other people when somebody's asking you a microphone. Okay, so if somebody is asking with a microphone and somebody's asking at the very end a question, wait, we're going to get to the microphone. Okay, so thank you very much. Over there is a question.
All right, well, thank you all for taking the trip out here. Really appreciate you coming and listening to what you have to say. First, an observation. The movement, this independent sovereignty, whatever movement, seems to be entirely right-wing. Except I did notice that there's about 6 or 7% of NDP supporters that are on board. I haven't met any. I was wondering if you've met some of them, and how we can expand the movement beyond just right-wing and get, Albertans of all political stripes to believe the message that we need this change. Thank you.
Well, about now 2 months ago, I let go my office in Edmonton, and the new tenant moved in. And as I was, they offered me to help me pack some boxes. And as we were packing some boxes, I learned that he was a staffer from the NDP. And I asked him if he could put people together. And I had a very good meeting, 3.5 hour long the next week with 6 NDP staffers, and all below 25 years old, all 6 of them, all students at the U of A, and none of them were Christian, and 5 of the 6 were first generation immigration in the province. And I had such a good time with them. And I was able, within 45 hours, just by being very honest with them, telling them I opened saying what was my bias. So I said, you know what, I'm white, I'm married, I'm evangelical Christian. I'm Daniel Smith is quite leftist compared to how right I am, and in the spectrum policies. So please, what I will tell you now, please take that in consideration, and we had such a good conversation, including I was able within 40 minutes to have them acknowledge that it's because of the Judeo-Christian values in our system of law that we can be where we're at today and that we need to protect it. And they agree on that. And finally, at the end of that meeting, after 2.5 hours, there's some subject that we started, and they say, well, this is too touchy. I'd like to change, like the schools or other stuff. There. So we agreed to leave some subject on the table, but we have quite a great conversation. And my plan, my dream, in fact, would be to, starting in August, when all the students come back to university, to contact all these associations. There's student association. I think there's 243 at the U of A. I had my office at the U of A for 7 years, and I love speaking with students like that. So we should do meetings like that in small group, because they usually rarely come to assembly like we do tonight, and just talk about them and talk with them. And at the end of that meeting that I had with them, I told them, laughing, I give them all a copy of my books to all of them and tell them, you see, you're way more conservative than you thought.
I don't like to look at the movement as left and right. I like to look at the movement as up and down. So globalists versus the rest of us. And that's the way I like to look at it. Like, do you want masters, or do you want to be your own master? And when I have conversation with young people, just a group over here, I just learned that it's about split amongst the young people. And when we did polling, the APP did a bunch of polling recently over the last year or so. The largest group in support was young people. It wasn't my generation, and it wasn't the one before me. It was younger people, because they're the ones that are having a hard time getting jobs. They're the ones that are having a hard time with the education system and indoctrination. They're the ones that can't get the houses or the loans or build their lives, and they're seeing it right away. So I don't like to look at it as a left and right. I like to look at it as a top down. Do you want to take control of your own future? Well, then you're actually in the movement. And I do want to remind people, during the 2016 election in the US, Hillary Clinton was projected to be a 98% favorite, because a lot of people don't speak up when the polls call. They just want to say what everybody else is saying, because there's a lot of FUD, we call it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and cancel culture. So when people speak up and say, hey, actually, I like this thing, they get chastised. People attack them. We saw this with the sundry floats and the parade recently. But what I do believe is going to happen, when you're in the security of the voting booth and nobody else can see what you're doing, and you just vote your heart, we're going to see a massive amount of people who you didn't think was supporting the movement actually do support the movement. So I don't look at it as NDP, conservative, right, far right, left, or anything like that. I look at it as us versus the globalist, and do we want to have our own future in our own hands?
I have 2 questions online, if you don't mind. Oh, is that okay? Okay, I'll do it very short. One of the questions that I got, this is specifically for Jason, because he is running a third-party advertiser. Can you outline basically the challenges that you have to run as a TPA for those who are trying to get into the game or getting themselves a TPA?
Thanks for the question, online person. It's the actual regulatory portion of it is not difficult. We have to keep our records and report our records every week. All the money in, we got to make sure that we properly collect people's information if it's over $50. So that means if it's 50 on the nose or less, we don't have to do that. We've received so many $49 donations because they were worried about that 50, but it's 50 or less, and then 250, more than 250. Elections Alberta will put you on their website for disclosure. So the regulatory side isn't the problem. The problem is the establishment. So when we try to get a venue, like holy smokes, we just got an email from the city of Edmonton that just said, none of your events will ever be allowed in any of our facilities. And we got that email today. And I was like, what? Like, we're not even saying vote for independence. We're saying it's your choice. We're saying it's your future. We're not even telling you what to do. We're saying get involved. And we got that letter today. When it comes to all over Alberta, For example, we'll talk about Corey Morgan's sign in Tabor. The people that don't like this are very active on the phone and behind their keyboard. They don't come out in real life, but they're very active. So when Corey Morgan's sign went up in Tabor, which is a very conservative town, and there's a lot of support there, the phones went off the hook. They were just bombarded. They actually closed City Hall or Town Hall down and went home that day because it was just crazy. And as a result of that, they've actually asked them to take down the sign. Well, then, Corey put up a second one. And when they pushed harder, he put up a third one, because that's how you respond to these kind of things. The Sundry Parade, as we kind of learning, it's kind of unfolding before our eyes right now, a parade float wanted to go in with nothing but Alberta flags. No political message, nothing. And they were denied. And then there was a bit of a pushback and saying, well, why would you deny that? You have the Forever Canada float, you have Danielle Smith, you have Jason Nixon. This is all political, so what's the problem? They reversed that decision, and then that's when they got targeted with harassment way beyond their wildest dreams, so they canceled the entire parade. Now, luckily, there's a group that got together, reached out to those organizers, reached out to the RCMP, and there's a new parade that's going to be happening now on June 20th, starting at 10 a.m. in Sundre. So bring your flags and let's go ahead and walk those streets. But for us, the most difficult thing is getting venues and making people comfortable with donating, because bank accounts were frozen during the convoy and other things like that. People are worried. But you can trust us with this. We don't sell your list. We don't get a voter list or use it or anything like that. The TPAs out there like Corey's and Kathy's, and there's a couple more coming out. Stay tuned to those, because this is how we can reach the undecided, how we can get into the cities, and we will continue to fight to make sure we can get venues and do shows.
I have a question. If somebody gives you $50 per week, and do you need to put that person on the list?
You're asking me on camera?
Thank you.
We follow all the rules. Yeah, and anything $50 or less, we don't have to collect your information. Yeah.
And the report is weekly on Thursday.
Correct.
That's correct. Okay.
Okay.
And by the way, we send none of it to Quebec, just to be clear.
20% to Quebec. Yeah, so I'm really excited. Like, this vibration is starting to happen. People are starting to vibe, starting to move forward. I'm really appreciative that there's a historian on the stage, because this has happened before. I was in the archives and I was reading the 1930s, and Social Credit Party, they had an actually interesting way of promoting the movement at that time. They had kind of like Bible studies, weekly Bible studies. People would host tea and crumpets in their living rooms and invite 3 or 4 people, and then they would read, I think it was G.H. Douglas's books on monetary policy. I mean, how fun was that, right? But they all got involved, and from that, the Alberta Treasury Branch was born. And from that, the Alberta people imbued the powers of a central bank to the bank, the Alberta Treasury Branch. And from that, then we come to the big bad Canada government. They have this cool rule called disallowance. And they disallowed our bank, the bank where we imbued our bank with special powers. The one was called, and I don't want to say it too loud, look around, Creation Credit. Even today, the Alberta Treasury Branch still does not have the power to create credit. When you go to borrow money from the Alberta Treasury Branch, they have to go to a real bank and borrow from that bank on your behalf. So that's where we stand with that. So Ottawa continuously disallow. Hey, can I drink some milk? Disallow. Eggs, disallow. Health food, disallowed. Oh, but you can have, they have the new re-milk is actually just now, you can drink this milk with no cows involved. So, I don't know, right on. Anyways, my question is, in the 1940s, Premier William Eberhart and Ottawa was discussing a pipeline from Alberta to the east. That's 90 years ago. Can you just go delve into that, what that meant for Alberta, and why are we still having this stupid discussion? Like, we've talked about this for 90 years. Give it up. Like, it doesn't work. Anyways, can you just tell us a little bit about that, Mike?
Yeah, actually, I'm not even familiar with that, I'm afraid, sorry, but because our big oil discovery, like we had a little bit of oil discovered in Turner Valley, like in the 1914 area, and so Turner Valley was our first oil, but it wasn't a really huge kind of thing, the way Leduc would be in 1947. So 1947, the discovery at Leduc kind of put Alberta on a map as a major oil producer, and from my understanding, that's when the big pipeline issue started coming. But like in terms of social credit, like social credit was a very uniquely Alberta movement. And one of the key aspects to social credit was William Eberhart, who was the one who created the social credit movement. He was actually a radio evangelist, a pioneering radio evangelist in Alberta. And he was so well known, like most people in Alberta actually listened to his radio program, maybe not regularly, but many of them did listen regularly. So he was originally famous as a radio preacher. And then when the Depression came, he was actually also a high school principal in Calgary, and when one of his students committed suicide because of the Depression, and he wanted to fix society, so he got into the social credit economics, and then used his radio program, which was already widespread across Alberta, to talk about social credit, and that was kind of the origin of the social credit movement. And like you mentioned, it was kind of like Bible studies. They were called study groups, social credit study groups. And there might have been like 2,000 across Alberta. It was like all across Alberta for people to get together regularly and to learn the social credit monetary theory, and that would kind of lead to the building of the party. But sorry, like that particular pipeline issue you mentioned, I'm not even familiar with that. But the social credit, what happened in Alberta is very unique in a Canadian history as to the rise and dominance of the social credit movement, because they won. Premier Eberhart won the election in 1935, like just 1 year after they created the party. He got a landslide election victory, and then he was premier until 1943 when he died. And then he was succeeded by Ernest Manning, who had been his right-hand man for many years in the radio ministry. And then Manning was premier till 1968, like our longest-serving premier. Actually, I mentioned he became a senator later, but he just kind of retired in 1968. He wasn't finished. He had never lost an election. He just wanted to move on, kind of thing. So anyway, the social credit movement is very important in Alberta's history, because also it's one of the things that distinguishes us from the rest of the country. Like when we talk about Alberta identity, like Ben mentioned, we have a distinctive Alberta identity to some degree, and the social credit government is part of how Alberta had a distinctive identity from the rest of the country, because no other, like BC would end up electing a social credit government for a while, but it was ideologically somewhat different from Alberta's, and it didn't have the same impact on BC the way social credit dominated Alberta politics. And it was during the social credit period that Alberta was called the Bible Belt of Canada, because both Eberhart and Manning were radio preachers at the same time as they were premiers. Like they were doing those things at the same time. And so Alberta is the only province that's had radio preacher premiers, for such a long period of time. So like I said, this just contributes to Alberta's identity because of the impact of the social credit. But sorry, I can't answer that specific question.
In my book, when I say cast a vision for our province, and in that book, one of the vision I cast, in fact, and I don't want to take credit for that, it's a friend of mine, Shane Getson, who's been working on that file for over 5 years, is the annexation of Northwest Territory. If Northwest Territory become Alberta, which we can do under our constitution, then we can bring our pipelines, and as many pipelines as we want, because now it's all provincial land, up to Tuktoyaktuk. And if we do that at the same time as buying a fleet of icebreaker, we can take control of Northwest Passage. So I've done in my book a bit of study how much it would cost to do all these infrastructure. You're looking at roughly 210 billion all together. That will then bring in 70 billion a year. So it's a good investment. So this is what I'm saying. We have to cast a vision for our province. We have to cast a vision without Montana, without Saskatchewan, without New Brunswick, without BC, and there's a way that we can our product out on our own land. Shane already did a lot of work with the government of Northwest Territory. There's 40,000 people living in Northwest Territory. They receive 1.5 billion a year from the federal government. It's a small price to pay for Alberta, and the only thing we need, according to our constitution, it's a referendum on the aggregation of Northwest Territory with Alberta the same day with both population. If we both say yes, they just have to pass a law at the Common based on that referendum, and then Northwest Territory become Alberta territory, and now we have access to tidewater.
Did you turn it off? Hold on, I'm just going to check the microphone. Oh, can you just come here, Brad? We're just going to, Brad, just come here. We're going to take some online questions first. So basically, there is a few online questions that came just here online. This is a question for Ben. If Quebecers don't know anything about equalization, why does Quebec government accept it?
Sorry, I was joking with the other Ben. I lost the question. I'm very sorry. I was distracted. Squirrel? No, like, yes. So the question was, Max? Sorry about that.
If Quebecers don't know anything about equalization,
yes,
why is the Quebec government still letting equalization going through the province, basically?
Because it's part of our constitution. This is one thing. It used to be a legislation that could have been repealed until 1982. Trudeau put it in our constitution. And that constitution, by the way, it cannot be reopened because at the same time, he made sure through equalization to create 3 welfare provinces that depend entirely on that equalization to survive, and not Quebec. Quebec, when you look at what they receive in equalization in terms of per capita, so per head, they are in 7th rank. The one that received the most, PEI, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Nova Scotia, the equalization for Nova Scotia represents 28% of their provincial budget. It's 26% for New Brunswick. It's 24% for PEI. If these provinces don't receive equalization, they're dead. They cannot cope with any of their bills. So what Trudeau did, he made sure to put that equalization formula in the Constitution to make sure that he always will have 3 provinces that will refuse under any circumstance to reopen that Constitution. So what he's done, he changed the Constitution the way he wanted it, with a garbage charter included in it, and the equalization payment included in that Constitution, put the Constitution in a lock and threw the key to the sea. So this is why that Constitution cannot be changed, because we have 3 provinces and Newfoundland. A couple of years, Newfoundland is a bit different because they have their offshore oil rigs that brings a lot of revenues, which is not good for the population because it's very few people that work on the oil rig. You know what? We have to start doing PR about Alberta oil because we have the most democratic oil product in the planet. There's nowhere in the planet that oil made so much millionaires across their population. Because our oil, it's hard to get because we're mining it and we're not just pumping it. We have so many welders and people. I mean, you know, Drayton Valley is oil country, no? So with the oil field, and that phenomena doesn't exist nowhere else in the planet. So we need now as well to tell our story, tell that Syncrude when they shut down their first mine, the reclamation of that land was so successful that they re-implement species that were extinct. They just, this is unique on the planet. So we have the greenest oil on the planet, and the most democratic, the one that spread the most, the richest among its people. We have the best oil product ever. And we need to talk about it.
One of the thanks. This is another question. This is online. This is kind of like the continuation to what Jason Levine was saying. Is that since when the signatures were dropped to Elections Alberta's office, it seems to be like a downtick of engagement when it comes to the independence movement. One of the things I said, and this is one of the on the comment section, one of the things I tell people personally is to get involved with their TPAs. And by the way, State Free Alberta, it's currently a third-party advertiser. I'm going to have Mitch tomorrow on my show, just a shameless plug here. But what's one of the things that we can do is to help the third-party advertisers, such as Jason Levine, he's doing a TPA, Kathleen Fletch, she's also doing a TPA, State Free is one of them officially. What you can say for future volunteers that might probably get involved with your TPE, Jason?
The clock is still ticking. The game's not over. We're going into the third period now. It's a 40-year battle for a lot of people to get to this point. So my hat's off to Mitch Sylvester and his team for collecting those signatures and putting that pressure on Edmonton to get us to this point. But don't stop now. This is 40 years in the making, and we're fighting hard now. Now we're bringing out some fresh legs, and we took a bit of a break there, and kind of had some of that Gatorade. No plug there. But now it's time to actually really fight hard, and we're against a massive system. $1.4 billion for CBC, and they can say whatever they want about this. They're not a third-party advertiser. They don't have to report anything, and they're obviously taking a position. Global, CTV. We're fighting against that, and we have limitations like 607,000 max. We can't touch more money than that. It may seem like a lot of money, but not when you look at 1.4 billion. And what we got to do is reach people in non-traditional ways. Another challenge is, good luck getting our ads in the newspaper and put it on mainstream TV. Now, luckily, social media just passed TV in viewership, so at least we still have that. But we are shadow banned like crazy too.
Yep.
But don't give up. This is now the third period of this fight. It might go into overtime, but let's go into third period and try and win this. And this is the grit that Albertans have. So yes, all the third-party advertisers, is more coming. You don't even have to pick one. You can help all of them. You can distribute some of your resources that way. Maximum $5,000 during the period, total, not per, but total. We're dealing with maxes, not this max, because he's a cute one, but we're dealing with maxes that the other side doesn't have. You may not know this, but if you're a political party, you have unlimited funds during this referendum. Third-party advertisers don't have that. So even the UCP and the NDP, they can use their funds, and you're seeing some taxpayer funds being used against this movement. But we do need you all to kind of help us out, get the message out, and don't be afraid to help a TPA out. Thank you.
Does anyone here have any more questions? Raise your hand, please.
Ben has something here. Ben,
Okay.
number 2.
Okay, gotcha.
I actually wanted to say something tonight. It's just...
You found something that rhymes with Lusakic?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. Ecstatic, yes. Oh, boy. I would also add to that, do not give in to fear. Because I tell you, I mean, we're Canadians. We always like to roll over and say, I'm sorry, I'll try and do better next time. Or go ahead and hit me again. And we've got to get over that. And don't give in to fear. Fear just cripples you. And oftentimes what you're afraid of doesn't even exist. But the stuff that does exist, like the dissing, like I can't believe the comments that are coming from people, but they won't say it to your face. And I'm an entertainer, so I want people to like me. So when people post something like saying, I'll be in Drayton tomorrow night, and then people that I've never heard, has never been on my Facebook page, come on, and they say, man, you're a traitor, you've just lost you soiled your reputation and all this. I've had people tell me that, and that bothers me. And I can give in to fear and say, okay, well then I better shut up. That's what they want. So if I can really encourage you to just kind of fear and just go with courage, which is the kind of the opposite of fear. So there you go. You've heard my heartbeat.
Yeah, for anybody complaining about algorithms. There's new technologies out called Nostr, N-O-S-T-R. If you're listening to this, check it out. And one more question. Alberta did at a time had, we told the Lieutenant Governor, I believe, we kicked him out of his apartment and sent him to a hotel and said, you're on your own dime. Mike, can you tell us more about that? Why did Alberta kick out the Lieutenant Governor? Do you remember that? Can you help us out with that?
A bit familiar with that, but because Lieutenant Governor has to sign legislation. You know, the legislature passes a law, and it has to be signed by the Lieutenant Governor, who's a representative of the monarchy. And I think that he took it upon himself not to sign certain legislation, because as you mentioned, the Social Credit government passed a number of laws, and the federal government has a power of disallowance, and they disallowed those laws because they considered them to violate the federal government's jurisdiction on financial matters. And I think that the Lieutenant Governor, at least in one case and maybe more, he just took it upon himself not to sign Alberta's legislation so that it wouldn't become law. And Aberhart was so angry about that, that he kicked him out of the residence. And so, but we still have a Lieutenant Governor, so I'm not sure how the resolution came, but he did get kicked out, as you mentioned, as a punishment for not being willing to sign Alberta's legislation.
I just want to throw a little bit of something into that last question that we had there. Just to be clear, Ben, I am a trader. I want to trade Ottawa for Edmonton. I want to trade fear for the future. I want to trade oppression for prosperity. And I definitely want to trade control for freedom. So they can call me a trader any day.
Right.
Just want to, I didn't know that about Eberhard and that Lieutenant Governor, but what Quebec did recently, it's very interesting because it's the same day that we voted here in Alberta, Bill 1 under Premier Smith, the first bill that she voted, sovereign Alberta within United Canada. Bill 2 was voted that same session, which was to add some condition to get out of the CPP. So basically, she sent the message to Ottawa, you know what, I will bark loudly, but don't worry, you can keep the money. And then in Quebec that same day, the legislature of Quebec voted to remove from their rules to have to pay allegiance to the crown to be sitting in that legislature. And followed by in 23, they decided with the Lieutenant Governor, what they've done, they passed again a provincial legislation saying that basically that the Lieutenant Governor was now a clerk for Ottawa, and that if Ottawa want to keep that guy there or that lady there, that they can pay for his salary, and they put a for sale sign in front of his residence of the Lieutenant Governor. And recently, when King Charles came to give the speech throne in Quebec, they were gathering at the same time as that speech was given, and they unanimously voted. There's 5 parties sitting in the legislature of Quebec. All 5 parties unanimously voted to kick the crown out for good, and they hired a process server to serve the king at his when he came out of the Commons to inform him that he was not welcome to Quebec. And you know what happened? Nothing. You know what? We're all talking about the Supreme Court. You know that the legislation about the French language in Quebec, Bill 101, we are in the 5th round at the Supreme Court. So it's been struck by the Supreme Court 4 times. 4 times the Supreme Court said this is not constitutional. And Quebec takes the judgment of the Supreme Court, rip it up, change 2 phrases, put back the law in place. So then they start again. It's been like that for 40 years so far. We're at the 5th iteration of the Supreme Court trying to strike that out. So what the Supreme Court can do when you don't respect what they say? Nothing. So anyway, that's my 2 bits on that.
I believe there's going to be a provincial election in Quebec next year, and I believe the Parti Québécois.
This year.
It's this year, okay. And I believe the Parti Québécois, who has dedicated themselves to holding an independence referendum, is in the lead there. So I guess the question is, do you think they will follow through with that question? the referendum that is for separation, and how is that going to play against Alberta's position right now?
Well, it's very interesting because I know as a fact that they won't hold a referendum while Orange Man is still in power in the United States. They succeeded. So Quebec, you know what, 54% of the population don't speak nor read a single word of English, strictly French. So, and it's French, not even very different from the French from France. So Quebec, culturally speaking, they are kind of, it's an island. So the news are very controlled, the narrative is very controlled, and it's very easy in Quebec to depending how much you have, to decide what happens based on the media that are there, including CBC. Quebec, the French CBC in Quebec takes 60% of all the funding of CBC total. The government of Quebec invests roughly with the federal $3 billion a year in their culture. So $3 billion a year is like 10 blockbusters from Hollywood that's produced in Quebec. When Quebec do a TV show, they usually buy the right, like CIS. I remember they bought CIS because it was a popular show. Well, instead of buying just the episode and translating it in French, they rerun the entire show with Quebecer actors. So I'm saying that because right now all Quebecers are afraid. Like I think they're building some nuclear shelters so much they're afraid of Trump. So basically, what the leader of the PQ said, don't worry, I won't do anything while Trump is there. Okay, but what is interesting is that the election is October 5th, our referendum October 19, 2 weeks later. I believe that on October 20, it's the right time, it's ripe to make some bridge to Quebec, because Quebec will, any time with the PQ there, help us in any way to be more sovereign. And there's a research chair at Montreal University. Sadly, 99% of the material is only in French, but they've been studying since it's been put together in 1968, and it's at the law department at Montreal University. They have books and rows and rows and rows how to assert sovereignty within Canada. And I believe, and that I'm in contact with the manager, the people that manage that chair of research, Daniel Turp, who's a professor from Montreal University, who was an MP under the Bloc and an MLA under the PQ. Lucien Bouchard is on that chair again. So I'm in contact with them, and we're all waiting for October 19 to see how we can create something. And I believe this is the future of whatever happened on the 19th. This is the way that because I believe that if we agree on a way that we want that country to function between Alberta and Quebec, put that to a referendum, Alberta, Quebec, with a new plan, how we want to operate in the country, and just table that to Ottawa, saying we don't want to reopen the Constitution, this is what we want to replace it with. I believe that we can make a lot of damage and start destroying the castle from the inside.
Well, we'll hold the microphone.
Why would Quebec separate when they get pretty much hand over foot whatever they Why would Quebec separate when they get hand over foot whatever they want from the government? It makes sense for us to separate, but you guys get, or not you guys, but Quebec gets whatever they want. Like their social programs are a lot better and yada yada, right? So if I lived in Quebec, I'd want to stay in Quebec or in Canada. Sorry.
I will tell you that separation is never a question of economic matters, and Quebec never. It was never a debate during the 95 referendum, during the 80 referendum. The economic factors of the separation were never debated. It was like priority number 15 on the row. And Quebec, because of their identity, because there's only 9 million of French community within a sea of 400 million English, they would rather lose all the money from all the others and be separate than forsake that. Right now it's practical because they know how to play the Westminster system, and they do play it so well that they do whatever they want. So and bonus, they get some gravy. So yeah, of course. But I'm telling you that if they have to get rid of the gravy anytime on a heartbeat, Quebec, the economic factor is not. It's a non-subject in Quebec when it comes to separation.
And I'll toss on a couple other things for Quebec and the rest of Canada, especially Alberta, to consider. Things like Bill C-9, which makes even our Bible hate speech. So I believe Pastor Mark may have violated Bill C-9 a couple times by giving us a prayer. When you have a Supreme Court that's making decisions like, the worst things you can do to children, you don't even have mandatory minimums anymore. When you look at what's going on in BC when it comes to land titles and UNDRIP, and that BC is, some of it's ceded, some of it's not ceded. Quebec's the same setup. It's not completely settled there. So if you're in Quebec and you're watching what's happening in BC, you might be worried that the Supreme Court's going to put that to happen there as well. Alberta's all ceded, but a Supreme Court decision can probably change all of that. So when you zoom out a little bit and you're under the Parliament system and they're passing things like C-22, 9, the 63 is coming back, all of this stuff, you might want to think, well, wait a minute, I don't want that criminal justice system. I don't want that parliamentary system. I don't want that Supreme Court. And when you start looking at it with that lens, there's a lot of reasons why you want to separate and start doing your own things and taking care of that yourself. But I think the Indigenous land issue, UNDRIP, is really going to open up a lot of eyes across Canada that within 10 years, none of us will own title. And you're seeing that starting in BC. So the people in Quebec has some of it's ceded and some of it's unceded. They might be facing that issue sooner than is comfortable for them. So maybe it's best to get out before it's too late.
Okay.
Now, when I was canvassing, one of the biggest questions that came up was, look what they did to
Brad,
the
hold
truckers.
the mic. Brad, hold the mic.
Look what they did to the truckers. Frozen bank accounts. All kinds of people wanted to sign the petition but would not because they didn't want frozen bank accounts. And my question, I guess, would be, if we should go through with this, what's stopping Carney from freezing the bank accounts of every Albertan?
I would say the only thing that's going to stand in his way would be the international pressure. He's recognized Palestine as a state, as its own thing. They're fighting for Ukraine to stay sovereign. Kosovo was another example where Canada recognized them right away. And for him to illegally retaliate against a legal process would, I think, have a lot of international pressure on him, especially south of the border. They wouldn't look at that very kindly. The Mosley decision was upheld in the appeals court that said what they did in Ottawa was illegal, including the freezing of bank accounts. So he would have to openly defy the legal system in Canada and go ahead and go against that. I don't think he would take that route, quite frankly. Now, I know there's a lot of concerns because nobody thought he would, well, the Liberal government would do that the first time around. And just to remind you, Trudeau's advisor during that was Mark Carney. It was Mark Carney who was advising Justin Trudeau to go ahead and freeze bank accounts. So I get that you're very concerned about that. But I think the international pressure would be too high for that, because if there's a democratic, legal, peaceful process, and then you're using illegal means to try and crush it, I think we'd actually gain a lot more support internationally. And one last thing I'll throw in there is the Supreme Court decision, if you look at it, about the Quebec secession. Section 103 and 104 talks about good faith negotiations must happen. And if good faith negotiations breaks down, for example, doing illegal retaliation, then the chances of the international community recognizing Alberta's unilateral declaration of independence goes up. Because the international community will support an Alberta if they're being violated illegally. That's going to be one of the things that will break the straw out of the camel's back. So I don't think he'll do that. I think we'll have far more leverage before we see anything like that happen. What I think he'll do is he'll continue to degrade us, and the media will continue to degrade us, but I don't think they'll touch banks. And if you're really, really concerned, move to a credit union in Alberta. Get out of the big banks.
And that was my answer. My answer is two-word, credit union. And that's the secret of Quebec, too. Quebec has one credit union named Desjardins. And Desjardins is under provincial rules. And they have 7.8 million members out of 9 million Quebecers. I mean, Desjardins is in a position that tomorrow morning, the fiat currency of Canada collapse, and they just tell everybody, you know what? What's in your bank account? It's now Quebec currency. It's no more for and everything keeps on working. Because all the businesses there got their account there, all the gas stations, all the farmers, all the manufacturers, everybody got an account at Desjardins. Okay, so that if you want to be sovereign, keep your money under your regulations. And we have 13 credit unions in this province under provincial regulation. We have ATB. Sadly, there's a history in the 80s that kind of cut, like they made of ATB a bit what AHS was, just a big black box. But it's still our bank. It's an Alberta bank. It's the treasurer. So we can decide to shift the way they operate and tell them, you know what, guys, no, don't listen to Ottawa anymore. The Minister of Finance has authority on ATB to call the shot. So I believe that, our solution is to keep our money, our investment, within provincially regulated corporations and banks.
Now, Bow Valley Credit Union was the one bank that said no to the freezes, and we've moved all of our business there.
Actually, like when I hear that kind of concern, it just makes me think all the more that I want out of Canada. Like, I was not born in a country where the government's going to freeze your bank account because you believe the wrong thing. I was not born in a country like that. That just shows how much we've changed and how much we're moving towards an authoritarian government in Ottawa. We need out. And so if someone was to say to me, I'm not going to sign this because they might shut my bank account, it's all the more reason why you need to sign that. We need out now before they keep, it's only going to get worse. Like, the Liberals have been doing this incrementally for decades, this kind of stuff. We stay in, next generation is worse than it is for us. So we've got to take a stand now, or we're going to be in a much worse situation in the future for our kids than we are right now.
There's one thing as well that blew my socks off. I think it's Michael's fault. I read it in his book. When Trudeau brought in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which were given by governments, not by God. That's a big deal right there. But he moved, we're talking about the courts, and he moved the ability of lawmaking from the parliamentarians to the courts. Those courts are not elected judges. Those are appointed. And that's the other thing, is you cannot trust what the courts are going to do.
So, does anyone here has any questions before we wrap this up? Yes, no, 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 1, just one. Okay. Last question. Dun, 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 dun.
Ben, I guess I'll direct this one at you. What's different in Quebec between both, because you guys are both work very well together? And you got such a voice too, I'll give you that. What's different in Quebec than Alberta? Because from what I'm hearing it almost sounds like the people and the government are on the same wavelength, where I don't see that happening in Alberta. There seems to be a real disconnect from what I'm seeing right now.
I believe I don't know what's the solution. Maybe the solution is within the party in power. Maybe it's without, or I don't know. But I believe that the solution is to have a shift in the political culture of this province, and we need to find people, citizens, that are willing to run in these functions as MLAs, that have the courage of their conviction. And that will, but for that they need to be part of a plan. I mean, you cannot join, like football is a good sport for that. No, like, yeah, you have the plan and you see this is the defense, offense, and all that. This is how the play will go. And I don't see that in the political realm of this province, neither at the NDP nor at the UCP. And I believe that creates a void, that if a group show up with a plan and is willing to exert it as swiftly and surgically as the PQ did in 1976 to change major stuff like kick out the RCMP, cut a current tax. And by the way, these are all policies that have been voted within the UCP since 2020. You know what? That's the problem. In the Westminster system, it's a group of private clubs. And when your private clubs win, usually you change stuff according to your club members. And then after that for the rest. But Alberta has been conservative for so long that when they become premier, they think that they have to rule for everyone. Well, I'm sorry. In the Westminster system, when you rule for everyone, you rule for no one. So we need to go back to the roots of that system, have a private club that is solid on its conviction, that actually implement swiftly what is voted by its members. Like I voted at the AGM in 2020 to kick out the RCMP, to create our pension plan and all that. We're 6 years later. That was under Kenny. We're 6 years later, nothing is done in the important thing that sent the right signal to change the tone. And this is what we need. So I invite you to participate in your CAs around and to find candidates that are willing to stand for their conviction. But as well, we need a plan. We need to propose them a plan that they can follow and that they can that they can implement quickly. Otherwise we won't. That there's no way out. No. So that's my point. And Quebec. That was the but Quebec is a bit different because they start with terrorism in the 60s. You know what? The FLQ placed over 200 bombs in English areas of Montreal in the 1960s, and there was a couple of dead and a couple of jail time, and so Quebec, you know what, fought to give us the right to be able to have peaceful assembly in this country, to discuss this subject. And because Quebec did that, they were able to convert that anger and all that rage of all this terrorist movement in a political faction called EPQ that was able to release that and then respect on the democratic spot. And I don't wish for Alberta to go in that dark place because we don't need to. Quebec went there before. So, but I really pray for courageous people in this province to gather together, to sit together, to design a plan, a vision. Lack of vision, people perish. We need to have a vision for our province, and we need to implement our value, be bold about it, and find candidates that are willing to be bold. And whatever happens, you just go for it. No, so when you have conviction in life, you have to be willing to die for it. No, in 10 years of active politics in Quebec, I had one car destroyed. The police once kept me 2 hours with the riot police in a closet because there were 7,000 protesters of the nurses they didn't like a policy that we were bringing on. And then the first premier woman that we had in Quebec, Pauline Marois from the PQ, and I'm not a fan of the PQ, but on that of her election during her speech in 2012, she was shot at. So our bodyguard took a bullet, and the sound man, sorry Max, was killed in the process. What did she did? She remained. She stayed. She even stayed. After that, she even finished her speech in the back room. No, just because it was her winning speech. So what I'm saying is that we need politicians that are willing to stand for their conviction, and I don't see that in this province so far.
And one other thing the other Ben will say is they had time. We haven't had that yet. It's like we've just this year woke up and smelled the coffee. And according to, I think, your book, you said it took them 20 years or something like that they worked on these proposals and these ideas and these processes before they even trotted them out to the public. I would love to see this happen and just boom, let's go, tomorrow. That's my wish, but I don't think we're going to, that's unrealistic. So we may be in it for a long run, and are we willing to look at our buddies out east and learn from them?
And the mic here, yeah. I'm just going to close with some hope and optimism, because that was quite the thing, the fire hose to take there. But look around tonight, all of you. Thank you all for coming out and being here. All the canvassers that stood up, you guys are helping make Alberta beautiful. And to this group of young people who drove from Edmonton to come out here to learn and educate themselves.
There's another person, people from Edmonton. That's awesome.
Yeah, and they said it's kind of mixed, which is actually good news for Edmonton. Yeah, 6-7, there you go. Good news for Edmonton. So I have some optimism and hope that we're going to be in good hands too, no matter what we end up doing in October. God bless you, and thank you all for being here tonight.
We're just about to close up for tonight, but Bonnie has something on her heart that she'd like to share, so we're just going to give her a couple of minutes, and then we can close in prayer.
Thank you. I'm one of the people who's been helping to volunteer for these town halls under various banners for the last 4 years. I've come to know such a spectacular group of people, and they keep doing this for basically no money, nothing. They're doing it because they have a passion to share what they've learned with you, with us. And the thing is, the earlier ones, the Alberta Pension Plan town halls, we didn't have a Max with us. We didn't have a Max Diaz with us. And now, so all of those wonderful town halls, they're basically gone. They're not in our memory. We can't resource them. We can go to some of the interviews and things like that, but we can't look back on them like we can this. And Max has been doing this for us, for other organizations, for Saskatchewan now, so that we can look back on this and remember it and document it. All of those hours that you canvassers put out in the cold, that didn't happen unless it was documented with pictures and things like that. So I just want to thank Max again from the bottom of my heart. And I cannot believe the dedication this man has. And thank you. For that reason, I haven't asked that. He never would have asked me to do this. But he's had a sad loss in his family in Chile. His grandmother passed away. And he hasn't been back there since he left, I don't believe. And he has family members that he wants to visit as they all grieve together and mourn together. And it's going to be hard for him to get there. I don't know if people can chip in and help Max get to Chile for, I think it's the first week of July or so. But if you're able to help Max in any way, you can e-transfer Max, M-A-X, at albertamail.net. And I hope I don't embarrass him too much, but you guys, you have no idea how grueling a job it is to be Max. And whether we win this referendum or not, we're a stronger province in large part because he documented it.
When I come to the meetings, Max is the first person there. And the last one out. And we really appreciate it. And Father, we thank you for your presence here tonight, because you said where 2 or 3 are gathered, here you are in our midst. Lord, we've learned a lot tonight. I pray that the truths you want us to keep, you'll put down deep in our hearts, our minds, our souls, and that these things will bear fruit for you and for the independence of Alberta. I pray for everyone here that your hand will be upon them, you'll bring them home safely, and that you will bless them and their family and give them peace and joy and the goodness of your grace. In Jesus' name.